Hello there, Byaka desu. I'm going to do my first video review, and this review was actually suggested by my boyfriend. Um, so, Trying to organize this, this will be about Mahoutsukai no Yome. I actually don't know the translation of the title. And I decided I had this anime series for a long time in my watch list. And I decided during this quarantine to watch it since it's available on Netflix. Uh, I decided to basically, when I finished it, to just rant about it with my boyfriend because he had already seen it. And I started to do a small comparison, and he said, "Oh, that would be cool to mention, to do that comparison because I've never heard anyone talk like that." So here I am. So the comparison is about Mahoutsukai no Yome and Howl's Moving Castle from Studios Ghibli. So anyone that knows me knows that I love very much the Studios Ghibli movie. Howl's Moving Castle for me is always a reference because it was the first anime, not only movie, but the first anime that I saw knowing that it was anime, and it really made me feel like I had to watch this kind of animation and art style. And it was actually presented to me as an Oscar-winning film that was presented in a class I had. Um, Basically, what happened is I really like these magic themes, fantasy. With not, I really love romance, but not that kind of obvious romance. So, as I was watching Mahoutsukai no Yome, these comparisons with House Moving Castle, because I basically know the movie uh, from front to backwards and vice versa. Um, I was always doing these small comparisons. So, of course, this review is going to have spoilers if anyone hasn't already noticed. So, basically, I think the main themes of both anime are very similar. So, we have this great magician that takes in a girl with a curse, yes. And this magician is not very human because in either of the versions the magician is a little bit cold. He doesn't understand human emotion in its full specter, and then this girl is trying to humanize him because she has lots of problems and different emotions, and starts to get closer to him. And there's the cute third wheel that I'm going to mention. So, in its most general aspects, I think the sceneries of Mahoutsukai and Howl's Moving Castle are very similar. They have these vibrant colors, full of flowers. They even the house that is portrayed even is very similar. You can see that they live in this country house with a beautiful garden, lots of flowers, and it's really House Moving Castle vibe. Also the music. I love the soundtrack of Mahoutsukai no Yome. I love any soundtrack of Studios Ghibli composed by Joe Hisashi. Uh, and it struck me every time I heard the instrumental score of Mahoutsukai. I always had these flashbacks to House Moving Castle, especially in the melancholic songs, and I think it really has the same vibe. Um, Even the animation, the way it's so calm and fluid, and at the same time it has this energy and vivacity. it's very similar to Howl's Moving Castle. I cannot go over this. And then the comparisons between characters. So Ilias could be a more monstrous version of Howl. So Howl is this human character that sacrificed or gave his heart to a demon, so he could be a greater magician. And now Sophie is trying to give him back his heart so he can be a human again, a full human. Because thanks to this, he's slowly becoming a monster. We are not sure about Ilia's story because they say he's half human and half whatever he is. But he is trying to connect to his human part, and he's doing this through Chise, and he's slowly learning of human emotions. So both Howl and Ilias are very childish in their approach. We can see Howl throwing a tantrum because Sophie messed up his bottles and now he thinks he's not pretty. We can see Ilias throwing a tantrum because Chise now has another friend and he's not okay with that, but he can't understand that he's jealous. So it's these childish feelings that they both share. About Chise, for me, Chise is a magical version of Sophie. So Sophie is a girl with a curse, as well as Chise. So Chise has a curse from when she was born because she's a slave baggy. And Sophie gained the curse because a witch took interest in her and knows that she is connected to Howl somehow. So she curses Sophie so that she can have an opportunity of frustrating Howl or have his attention because she loves pretty boys. Whatever. So they both are these cursed girls. The only difference is that Chise knows how to use magic. So she's an apprentice of Ilias, and Sophie is more like the silver lady that takes care of the house and treats everyone and everything. So Sophie is basically represented by these two characters, but I think Chise is the most close to her. Then we have the cute third wheel. What is this third wheel? In Chise's case, it's Ruth. Ruth is her spirit animal. It's there to protect her, and he's basically cute and watching their relationship from afar, trying to how do I say it? He's trying to help Chise, he's trying to guide her so she can have a better relationship with Ilias. And we can see this also in Howl because Markle does the same thing. So Markle is this tempered kid that doesn't accept Sophie at first, but then he starts to see her like a mother that he doesn't have because he's been a magician since he was little. So he starts to tell Sophie things about Howl so she can get closer to him. So they have very similar roles. Also, the transformation, I didn't mention this, the transformation of Ilias into a monster, the way supposedly it is fur, but it seems like feathers in the texture, is very similar to Howl when he also transforms into this giant monstrous bird. So there are really lots of comparisons we can do between the two anime. And finally, one of most would consider one of the best scenes, the ending of Mahoutsukai, where Chise prepares these rings so they can share as a way. She says it's a magical item so they can find each other in any circumstance, but at the same time it's like a wedding ring, a ring of compromise, of saying they're together. And this happens also in Howl's Moving Castle, but way before the end, in the middle, where Sophie is going to represent Howl, and Howl gives her a ring just like his, so she can always find her way back home, her way back to him. And there are these little similarities that I couldn't get over, so I really think I don't want to be really forward about it, but I think Mahoutsukai no Yome is very inspired in Howl's Moving Castle. Of course, they have these in Howl's Moving Castle. There's more, how do I say it, blended romance, but at the same time, that is not the focus because Hayao Miyazaki never wants to make that the focus of his films, because the female protagonist always can always surpass her own obstacles without the typical damsel in distress, because they have the power too. So he doesn't want that typical couple thing, but in Howl's Moving Castle they really become a couple. And here Chise and Elias are supposedly a couple from the beginning, because Elias says she's his fiance. But then in the end it's like they have this small wedding in which they really make their relationship true. They still don't understand each other, but they are willing to learn about one another, and although they can have a really normal relationship because Elias is still not totally human, they have this really beautiful romance that I think it goes in the same vibe as Howl's Moving Castle. So I just wanted to do this small comparison, and I think Mahoutsukai no Yome really took much inspiration in Howl's Moving Castle. So this is my small review. I really liked Mahoutsukai no Yome without the comparisons, because I think the Elias personality and the personality of all the characters are very different from Howl's Moving Castle, because Elias is much more gloomy and unhuman than Howl, because Howl has been human and had a heart for quite some time, and is more joyous, a more open character. And Chise is a lot more depressive than Sophie, because Sophie understands her condition and is really trying to fight back. And Chise is more like she accepts her condition and has already made up her mind about it. Markle and Ruth have different maturity about, so they aren't really comparable. They are the cute third wheel. So, and Mahoutsukai no Yome has a lot more variety in characters, but then again, they have 24 episodes and also the ovas to explain part of Chise past, as opposed to Howl's Moving Castle that just 1 hour and a half, 2 hours, I'm not sure, movie, and doesn't have the time to really present much characters. Mahoutsukai has a good villain, has really good moments, and it makes a story of its own. But I just wanted to let this small comparison, and tell me if you think I'm just seeing things, or if you see other similarities to this movie or another anime. Just tell me in the comments below. See you next time!